Thank you very much, Patricia. So my name is Aydan. I'm one of the outreach psychotherapists at A Place Within, which is part of Providence Row. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our service generally. And then I'm going to hand over to Matthew, my colleague, and who's with us already. And he's going to give a case study, so just a little bit more in depth with one of the clients we've been working with. So I want to have a few slides for a bit of visual interest. So I'm going to share my screen. I don't know if you can see that.
We can see your info.
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool. Okay. So I think I'm a little bit behind. Okay. So yeah. So A Place Within is the outreach psychotherapy service division of Providence Row. Providence Row is a homelessness charity founded in 1860. We're based in the Dello Centre in Tower Hamlets. So CHI's synthesis of mental health says that 49% of those experiencing street homelessness in London had a mental health support need. And data from the UK government's rough sleeping questionnaire suggests that more than 8 in 10 people sleeping out had a mental health support need. So clearly for charities such as Providence Row, this is something that can't be ignored. So in 2018, Providence Row developed A Place Within, and we've gradually expanded for the last few years to cover Hackney, and where we operate out of the Hackney Service Centre, and also the City of London borough. So we have a core team of 4 psychotherapists, one for each borough. Plus one who focuses on our female clients across the three boroughs. We also have another psychotherapist who founded the service and now currently manages the service. And she sees a limited number of clients as well, so just a few each week. On top of that, we have a volunteer psychotherapist who's, you could say, an advanced student, someone who's been studying a long time and quite experienced. And she sees 3 clients a week. And we also have an admin volunteer. Both of these people add a lot of value to our team. So it's quite a substantial team. So you may have noticed I've been referring to our service as outreach psychotherapy. This is an element that makes our service unusual, and we believe one of the key reasons for its effectiveness. So, as you know, traditional therapy has usually taken place in a room, the client and therapist sitting across from each other. And while we do offer this to all our clients, we also, right from the beginning and all the way through their cases, offer them the option of having sessions in less conventional locations. Just realized I'm just behind my slides. So this is a picture of Dello Centre where we work, the 3 boroughs we work in. This is, I'm up to speed now. So you can see there's some different locations that we might see clients. Speaking from personal experience, since I joined the service, I've held sessions with clients in local parks, cafes, coffee shops, sometimes just simply walking through the streets, as well as in the interview rooms in the Dello Centre, because I'm responsible for Tower Hamlets. So all my clients, almost all my clients are currently based in Tower Hamlets, and many of them come into the Dello for breakfast or for lunch, or they see other members of the Providence Row staff for other things like housing. They see the reset team and so forth. So my colleagues' experiences are similar. We see clients, all over the place, and some clients just vary from week to week where they want to meet us. One reason we do this is that we find clients are often more open to having sessions in the first place when they have an element of control or freedom in terms of the location of our meetings. Some clients don't want to be inside at all, especially not in places where lots of people are gathered together, as they're not used to it, or have had negative or possibly traumatic experiences in such places. Other clients simply haven't got the funds to travel to the Dello or Hackney Service Centre, or one of the hostel rooms. Some clients have told me they don't want to be where they might meet people they know, either for reasons of privacy. They might not want people to know they're having therapy, or another reason around privacy, or because they don't want to be around people they perceive as negative influences, or it might have negative associations with those kind of people or specific people. Often clients give no reason for not wanting to meet in the typical psychotherapy setting, and that's also fine. There's absolutely no need for them to justify it. Of course, holding sessions outside or in public spaces like cafes comes with its own challenges. But overall, we've had success with this approach. And as I mentioned, there's always the option for our clients to gradually move their sessions into a more classic environment if they feel they're starting to need greater privacy, for example. Could be weather related, of course, as well. I'm only 6 months in, so this will be my first winter with the service. So for me, it'll be interesting to see how that affects this aspect of the service. So another important part of our service is that we don't discriminate if a client is currently using alcohol or drugs. Historically, this has been one of the biggest barriers to homeless people getting psychotherapy. Most services, or a lot of services, simply won't allow people who are currently misusing alcohol or drugs to be referred. But for many people, psychotherapy can be a vital aid with regards to curbing their alcohol or drug use. So they can often find themselves in a catch-22 situation. Richard Bryant Jeffries, the writer of a well-known case study on counseling a recovering drug user using a humanistic approach, urges us to remember that the problem drug user is a person, a human being with thoughts and feelings and needs, doing the best they can to survive, possibly carrying with them a whole host of difficult and painful experiences, which may or may not have initially caused the person to begin using drugs, but are now being dealt with by maintaining drug-induced states of mind and feeling. He urges us therapists to reach into the chaos and let our drug-using client know that we see their personhood. So 2 words stuck out for me when I read that quote, chaos and personhood. So speaking from my own experiences and the experiences my colleagues have shared with me, I know that some of our clients attend their sessions on time, at the initially agreed time, every week. But this is quite rare. The majority of our clients, whether heavy drug users or alcohol users or not, seem to have an element of chaos in their lives. And if we're fair, we can probably say that most of us here today have some element of chaos in our lives as well. I certainly know that I do. The chaos our clients experience might be worse than the average person's, though. This might be to do with the effect of drugs and withdrawal. It may be to do with a general lack of structure, having no job or little contact with family. It may be to do with undiagnosed mental health issues or learning difficulties. Some clients have told me that before things took a turn for the worse for them at some point in their lives, they had been quite structured and orderly, and they'd never missed appointments, etc. Other clients have told me that structure and order have always been things they've struggled with, and implied that this was a contributing factor to their homelessness. The founder of the person-centered approach, one of the main humanistic approaches to counseling and psychotherapy, Carl Rogers, believed humans were not too dissimilar to plants. If a plant is provided with the right conditions, good soil, sunlight, and water, it flourishes. Equally, if people are given the right conditions, they will flourish. Their unique personhood will emerge from the chaos. For Carl Rogers, that meant providing clients with a non-hierarchical, empathic, and non-judgmental relationship. In a practical sense, here at A Place Within, we try to do this in a number of ways, because as we all have our different theoretical backgrounds and training, we all come from a place where we try to be client-centered and adopt certain humanistic values around the way we work with clients. So first off, just offering these clients, many of whom would be turned away from other services, the chance to work with us in the first place is one way we do that. Then, as mentioned earlier, offering to meet clients where they feel most comfortable within the boundaries of reason and safety, of course. Another thing we are proud to do is offer clients up to 24 sessions, which if they were to attend every week would amount to a relationship with us spanning half a year. And if some sessions are missed, that could be longer than half a year. A significantly longer contract than many psychotherapy services are able to offer. Another thing we do is we offer clients a certain amount of flexibility around missed sessions. We know that for many of our clients, starting to do this kind of work with us is a huge and often very challenging step. Many of their behaviors and lack of structure are deeply entrenched, and that expecting them to turn up every week, as initially agreed, is simply unrealistic. We therefore do not operate with a 1 or 2 strikes on your out type system. And we always try to have client-led conversations around missed sessions, any lack of communication we're experiencing, and any thoughts we might have around closing their case. We also offer support workers the chance to re-refer clients if we've had to close their case, or the client has checked out before completing their sessions, and then at a later stage felt that they were more ready or to try again. So these are some of the practical ways in which we try to uphold this client-led, relationship-based approach to working with our clients, giving them the best chance possible to flourish. Of course, there are more subtle ways that are more to do with how we communicate with within the sessions and the tools we use. But as I said, that these can vary quite a lot between us, as we all have our own backgrounds in terms of training and theoretical approach. So I'm not going to go into those right now. So this slide is just a kind of slightly cheesy way to express that we try to be quite forgiving and understanding about clients who don't always manage to fulfill the expectations that we might want or they might want in terms of turning up every week, same time. We try to restructure, we try to reschedule sessions when we can if a client can't make it or they miss it. We try to have as many conversations as we can with them around how it is for them to try to come every week and how it is for them to be in therapy and suddenly have this thing that they're doing every week that can feel quite overwhelming at times and might seem like a bit too much at first. So
can I just want to
yeah.
Flag up, you've got about 10 minutes, so if you want to take questions, just
Sure.
bear that in mind.
Okay, cool. So I think, do you mean 10 minutes for both me and Matthew?
10 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So what I'll do is I was going to give a little bit of feedback as a kind of bonus, but I don't think that's as necessary. I've pretty much got to where I want to get to. So I'm going to pass over to Matthew now, my colleague who looks after the Hackney aspect of our service.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Aydan. So just following on from what Aydan was talking about, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into a kind of client session or how it might look in the work. My presentation is probably quite brief, But yeah, if someone could just let me know if I'm pushing into the kind of last 5 minutes. But I wanted to start with this quote by William Faulkner, who's a writer, and you may know this, the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. This quote, although about writing, could also be an accurate summation of what therapy can entail. A conflict, or as one of the Merriam-Webster definitions describes it, is a struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands. We might otherwise call it ambivalence. The impact of trauma is profound, often leading to the fragmentation of an individual's or group's psyche. This can result in a stark binary perception of the world. Everything is either all good or all bad, safe or not safe. In times of danger, whether real or perceived, there's no room for nuance. As we know, trauma exasperates our ambivalences, heightens our conflicts, and particularly with the homeless population, can create a sense of being trapped in a perpetual cycle. There's a constant tug of war between the desire for love, security, and the safety a home can offer, and the fear of entrapment and violence that often comes with it. Using a clinical case study, I want to explore how using a therapeutic technique known as creative indifference, which really means not being invested in any specific outcome, is a trauma-informed way of working which supports both the client and therapist to restore agency. So my client D is a Black man in his late 40s who lives in the woods. He came to explore mental health concerns, his relationship with his family, and racism. His central conflict appeared to be whether to reconnect with his estranged family, and by extension, society with all of its contradictions, violence, and possibility for beauty. Creative indifference is an ideal, a goal we strive for. It's not always attainable, given our inherent biases and the influence of the systems we're part of. However, it's an attitude or a practice that we must continually nurture, and the therapeutic hour can provide a space for this. Our sessions became about giving voice to both sides of the conflict, symbolized in the polarity of wilderness and society. Psychotherapy can support the individual to invest in both positions and play out a kind of interpersonal dialogue between both sides to uncover the needs of each. An intervention might go something like this. You talk about being in the wilderness and society like they are two distinct and separate realms. How would it be to imagine each of them as a person or an animal and get them to speak to one another? If the client seems invested in this idea, I invite them to conjure an image of these two people or animals and describe how they look, how they move, what sounds they make, supporting clients to eventually imagine what each would say to the other, how they feel about the other, and what they may need from the other. This kind of work can support us to realize that these external opposing forces also exist within us and enable us to bear our own contradictory feelings, that the good and bad out there also exists in here, and over time perhaps help us understand more about our entrenched positions. It's important not to aim for change, because the moment you start aiming for it, you begin to impose your values on another human being. I used to quite like the idea of holding hope for a client, which is the notion that if a client can't hope, you hold it for them. It's a kind of nice idea in theory, but it is one that can quickly become oppressive. For example, with D, holding the hope that he might be able to integrate back into society can become coercive, because it is a society I construct from my experiences of being a white middle-class queer man, which has completely different meanings to D's experience. And clients know this. They are attuned to any signs that you are trying to steer them in a specific direction. This came up with my work with D when he questioned me about what psychotherapy was and whether this was all just an elaborate ruse to get him housed. I was open to exploring this with him, and as I think any psychotherapist must be willing to do, I owned that I had veered away from the position of creative indifference. This proved crucial to our work because it also modeled to the client that I too was struggling with the contradictory forces within. It wasn't just him who was ambivalent. In these vulnerable moments of meeting, the therapist and client cease to be and become two contradictory human beings fumbling around in the dark together. Thank you. And we'll now open for questions, if we've got time.
Thank you. Perfect timing. We've got 6 minutes for questions. Thank you both so much. That's such a rich description of the work that you do, and it's such important work. Do you want to take questions, or do you want me to call people in?
I'm happy for you to host that if you want.
Okay,
Matthew.
Louise.
I'm sorry I came in late. It wasn't really a question. I just wanted to say I wrote in the chat, but just really beautiful how you're talking about it. So much wisdom in how we engage in the human dimension. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm a GP and prof in medical education. But all of those things that you're saying just feel so important to our understanding of engaging with the human dimension. And I wish we could, or my wish is to bring more of that sort of thinking into the medical education space as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Does anyone else have any? Angela?
I think, yeah, I echo what Louise said. I'm curious about because I know that this is a commissioned service, I think, and the way you're describing, like, not focusing on goals feels really at odds with sometimes what commissioned services are designed to be, and achieving an outcome and like having to report on that and all of that. So I wonder if that is kind of part of the design of the contract and what you're expected to report on.
Yes, it is. We do have goals, and we do have to obviously meet certain criteria for funding. And I guess that's probably one of the hardest things to sit with as a therapist, because obviously, speaking from personal experience, and Aydan, you might have your own views on this, but it can quite easily become that case of, oh, I really want to get this person like into a good position where they're going to be where they're going to be housed, and where they're going to be get what then, you know, what needs they might not have achieved. And I think that is one of the things that I do have to sit with and reflect on a lot, because when I'm with the person, I have to try and be really respectful of their wants and needs. And often I find that even by working in that way, new things will emerge from that, because you are someone who is actually a professional who's listening to them and trying not to have an agenda. And even in that, it creates something new. I'm going to stop talking. Aydan, do you have a response to that?
No, I think you covered that quite eloquently. I was going to add, but actually I jumped in too soon. So.
Thank you. So, Louise, is that a new hand?
It is, but if someone else has got a hand, they can go first, because I've already talked, and then I'll come in after.
Okay, we'll take Tonyin and then come back to Louise, and then we'll move on to the next. Thank you for that.
Hi, good morning. I came in late, but I still managed to listen to some. When do we send referral in for our clients? I'm a social worker and meet with a lot of clients that need your support. So how do I send referral in for your support?
Matthew?
If you so the referral process is usually done by our manager, Nora. So if you want to give us or share your details with us, we can get Nora to be in contact with you. I'm not actually sure how the referral process works, because we normally get they normally come through sort teams, but it's good if we kind of branch out and make a relationship with you. Do you know any more?
I was just going to say, one thing that's important is that they are registered as homeless, so they must have a chain number. But what we can do is we can share like our manager's details, like Matthew said, if anyone thinks that they might be wanting to refer to either Tower Hamlets, Hackney, or City of London.
That's lovely. If you have any any written information, then perhaps that's something we can share with the group as well. That'd be lovely. Great.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Louise. I'm going to give you the last word. Well, Brian just snipped in, so if Mary and Sophie are okay, we'll take those two questions, then we will hand over to you two. So,
that's
Louise.
fine. Maybe I'll put my question in the chat because it might be off-piste and I don't want to take time if it's busy. But it was just around bringing trauma-informed care and thinking and some of that wisdom and advice on, you know, how we bring that into systems and in systems for education. But that might be off-piste, so I could put it in the chat and let Brian go.
And perhaps it's something we can catch up on as well. It's very much something we're wrestling with. Thank you. Brian.
Thanks. Are there any other eligibility criteria for referrals other than being a rough sleeper with a chain number?
At the moment, they're the only criteria that I'm aware of. I'm 95% sure on that. But again, we don't get involved too heavily in that side of things. So if we can give you some more information towards the end.
Lovely. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for the interest.
Thank you both so much. I think it's something we could talk about for much longer. And perhaps likewise, you can come back next year and kind of give us an update and let us know what the winter was like for you and your clients or service users.
Thank you, Patricia.
Okay, so moving on, an update of work that started in 2022. I will hand over to, is it Sophie and Mary? Or Mary and...
Lovely. So hello, everybody. My name is Mary Kneafsey. I'm the Assistant Director of Client Services for Providence Row Housing Association. And Sophie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sophie Lemon and I'm the team leader at Providence House, which is one of our hostels.
I'm just going to say to start that Sophie and I, we don't actually work with Matthew and Aydan. Just to say, it can be very confusing for people. We do understand that. So Providence Row Charity and Providence Row Housing Association were actually one entity when it started in 1860, as Aydan mentioned to us. But I think it was somewhere in the 1980s that they parted ways, and Aydan and Matthew now work in the charity arm, and Sophie and I are in the Housing Association arm, and it can be very confusing. So what we're going to do, we're very, very fortunate in 2022 to actually work with Angela and Shay and Sarah from Elft, and with the team in Providence House. We actually were invited to undertake a pilot in basically providing trauma-informed services for our residents in Providence House. So hopefully first we have a little video for you, and maybe just, this is one of our residents. And
hi, my name is Susan Sims. I'm born 1964, I'm a Chorley girl, and I'm 59 years old. I really, really, really appreciate being where I am now. It's took me a long time, over 20 years to get where I am. In different hostels on the street, it's been terrible, horrific, nightmares, but also loveliness. I've met lovely people, including the staff here, they're really great. Even my key worker, she's brilliant. And I didn't normally even do key working sessions, but I do love it here. I've got the biggest flat and it's gorgeous, and I feel so at home. I don't want to leave it, really. I think there should be good things though, with the garden and everything, so people can. I like to make candles, and I like to show people. I'm a craftsman. I like to make things so it keeps people involved instead of thinking about their drugs all the time, which I can't lie, I do, honestly. But never mind. At least I do it to myself, no one else, never mind. You know what? I love it when I can have a rest, and that's why I'm glad I'm here. Thank you very much to everyone here, and thank you very much to society. Thank you for giving me a roof over my head and a chance to have my life back again. especially to see my grandchildren, my children. Thank you. Susan Top. Bye-bye.
Do you do any activities here?
I do lots of activities, but normally outside. Not like that. I like to talk to people. I love people. They don't have to love me. But I always say hello, have a nice day. And it's the children I really like to make. I say, well, you're lucky to have a mum like her, and you're lucky to have a dad. And they look at me and they go, oh, the look in their eyes, it makes me melt. It gives me so much pleasure in my soul, and it helps me heal. And that's what keeps me alive. And I love it. What better the act, hopefully, I can let my children see this. And I love you very much. The reason why I'm not in your life is because I decided that you could have a better one without me. I did the best in the beginning, and that's all I've got to say. But hopefully I can meet you eventually when I'm ready, when I've got my own council and I have warmers. And I love you all, Joshua Sean Ward, Paul Andre Holland, Zoe Samantha Holland, and my grandchild. 23, I can't believe it. Sure, I'll start that, yeah?
Tell us about the walk that you went on with the residents and staff.
Yeah, we went out for a picnic, right? And I can't walk, I'm in a wheelchair. I can walk a little bit, but I'm in a wheelchair, so I'm moaning because I'm going up these bumps, right? Right. Luckily, I had a geezer of the army that works here. He's called Monty. What a lovely bloke. He had patience with me, though. Lovely. Every time I'm like, no, that's way, that way. But he did it. It was really true for the first time pushing me. No, we went down to the canals and it was great. I loved it. It was really nice. I had views there I've never seen. I've seen a lot of London, but you know what? I've been in Wales, Ireland, I've been all over. I've been under some, but when I've seen a lot, I love it. I love the canals. I really love it because that's freedom. You know, it's where a different life is. And like people, you know, where you think they're rich and poor, whatever. I think it's just people that want to be free. And not have a council list of or a roof over their head, so they could float and go away and come back without nobody shooting. You don't need a passport, you got no joking. It's been a nice day.
Do you feel safe here?
Absolutely correct, isn't it? It's they don't. I hope they feel safe because I hope it's not my fucking move to it. So sure. Anyway, good night. God bless. I love you. I love all the staff here, and I really, really care. Unconditional. That's what I think. Unconditional love's the best.
Thank you. So that was Susan. She's one of our residents at Providence House, and she's definitely made her mark. So Susan has been with us really for about 6 months, and has really done so well. But we have a presentation, and the presentation is just going to capture what the aims of the pilot was, because we appreciate that some of you here today may not have been aware of it. We will give you some examples of what we actually did. So I'm going to take a few slides, and Sophie will come in, and then I'll come back at the end, and then really happy to take any questions. And I know Patricia will let us know if we're going to go over time. So yes, the trauma-informed pilot and its impact. And Lindsay is the manager at Providence House, and Sophie, as mentioned, is the deputy at Providence House. Next slide, please. So why we did the project, we very much recognise the people who have experienced homelessness are as much more likely than the general population to have experienced trauma. And being homeless in itself can be a traumatizing experience. Next slide, please. Our 8-month pilot aimed to embed awareness of trauma-informed approaches and a process of co-producing quality improvement in Providence House, which is a 33-resident hostel for single adults. Most of them tend to be over 50, but not all. And we wanted to ensure that the staff and the residents were equipped to continue making the hostel more trauma-informed. Next slide, please. So in summary, residents and staff highlighted many things that were working well in the hostel, including supportive management and staff and effective safety procedures. We also highlighted opportunities to improve, including relationships between residents and between residents and staff, improving digital inclusion, access to support outside of the hostel as well as in reach, and communication between residents, the hostel staff, and the wider organisation. Next slide, please.
So the trauma-informed principles that we focused on to make Providence House more trauma-informed was safety, trustworthiness and transparency, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, cultural, historical and gender issues, empowerment and choice. Next slide, please. So the first principle that we focused on was safety. Using the trauma-informed approach at Providence House has offered residents physical, emotional and spiritual safety. For example, we have a partnership with our church across the road, St. Anne's, and they host weekly activities which offer residents emotional and spiritual safety in a welcoming and non-judgmental environment. And then we also looked at the importance of creating a physical environment which is safe and fosters a sense of calming and de-escalation for the residents and staff. Next slide, please. The next principle that we looked at was trustworthiness and transparency. So by offering a safe and inclusive environment, residents are encouraged to engage in open discussions without any judgment. By building the trust with residents, we've built trust by having consistent, clear schedules and predictable routines so that the residents know what to expect each week. This includes advertising things via posters around the hostel. We have monthly resident meetings to get their feedback and to discuss upcoming activities and trips. And then we also give out monthly newsletters. Next slide, please. So the next trauma-informed principle that we focused on was peer support. And through activities, we encouraged peer support and sharing experiences to combat isolation. We discovered through activities and discussions held that residents often have experienced quite similar challenges, and they can offer validation to one another. Next slide, please. So the fourth principle that we looked at was collaboration, and we formed many great partnerships with various agencies, which include Reset, the Neighbourhood Mental Health Team, East London Foundation Trust, the Limehouse Practice GP, which is just across the road from us, Royal London Hospital MDTs, Groundswell to support with residents attending appointments, Host, and the partnerships that we formed with our local church and mosque. Next slide, please. The next trauma-informed principle we focused on was the cultural, historical and gender issues. We aim to create an inclusive environment so that everyone feels valued, and we practice the house proud and social housing anti-racism pledges. For example, we recently held a Pride celebration, a barbecue, which we aim to create a space for our LGBTQ residents to feel seen, valued and accepted. This aligns well with our commitment to fostering this inclusive and supportive environment, and matches with our House Proud pledge to ensure that all residents and staff feel free to express their identities. Another example of that being the local church. Not everyone that attends the weekly groups is necessarily Christian. They invite everyone to participate, no matter your religion, even if you just want to have a general chat about life. This has really given our residents a sense of belonging and comfort. Next slide, please. And then the final trauma-informed principle we looked at was empowerment and choice. So this involved working with the residents rather than making decisions for them. empowering residents through collaborative decision making and initiatives that we've set up, such as the DIY Maintenance Club, where residents now take control of the building maintenance, doing stuff like painting walls, putting up clocks, things to make it more homely. Then we've also had resident competitions where we've grown stuff like plants, which has been lovely. And then we've also implemented change ideas following feedback from residents, which we have in our monthly resident meetings. This has really given our residents a sense of control through having choices and making sure that their voices are valued in implementing all of these activities and approaches. And yeah, next slide, please.
So there was a few things that we found during the pilot that has become very important to us. I think one of the things Aydan was mentioning in when they were doing their presentation was about people not always turning up for appointments, and we too used to find that. So one of the things we found was that you have to be consistent, that you are there to deliver, even though you know that they might not be attending the appointments, because they see that. And of course, the other thing was communication. Communication and feedback. So if they are putting forward change ideas, actually being able to feed back to them, so that even if you couldn't follow through on everything that was being asked to, that you would explain why something might not be able to happen, or we take a different approach. So in looking at communication, and Sophie mentioned some of these, we made sure that there was a lot of different ways to communicate with people. So having informal conversations were held with residents and staff, and that involved a lot of door knocking, which eventually got appreciated. Eventually you didn't have to knock on the doors. A lot of written communication, including newsletters, initially put together by the staff, and then as the pilot was embedded, was co-produced with the residents. Posters advertising the project and activities, and the activities grew because the residents themselves started making suggestions for other activities, some of which they led on. There was a project notice board in the lounge and a digital screen in the lounge with updates and feedback. And then residents meetings, which as Sophie mentioned, involved the residents having the opportunity about what changes they would like to see, and then key workers talking to the residents about the project. Next slide, please.
Mary, you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you. So examples of the impact. So initially staff found it quite challenging to think that it was okay to go and play a game where they were supposed to be working. So we did a lot of work explaining to staff that this is their work. And it actually worked really, really well, starting off with jigsaws and then the game. So staff received trauma-informed training, which supported their understanding of the residents' complex presentations. Managers and staff attended the QI and the Pocket QI training, which East London Foundation Trust kindly provided. And we got tools that supported us to deliver and sustain the aims. Staff learned and incorporated the change driver diagrams, the fishbone diagram, and the plan, do, study, act into their approach with residents. And residents actually really found the use of post-it notes and change ideas and prioritizing. The residents really enjoyed it. It was like a game and they found it fun. And they were also getting some of the things they would like to see changed, that they would happen. And we continue to use these. And for our staff, our communication to them was that this wasn't another task. This was a new approach on how to do something. Next slide, please. Oh, QI, quality improvement. Sorry, thank you. So some of the impacts, the staff reporting that using games has helped the relationships, assessments and support planning with residents. We started to play music. Again, the residents would choose the music, and very often playing music during the activities led to residents sharing memories associated with music and opened up richer conversations between staff and residents. And then attendance at the weekly shared food sessions with staff and residents has steadily increased, and more residents becoming involved in choosing and cooking dishes. And I think on a Wednesday, if you're ever around, you'd be very welcome to join in the food affairs and the change ideas conversations. Next slide, please. So we also had the recess workshops, which was something the residents had asked for. And these were attended by both staff and residents. And basically residents had previously were reluctant to discuss their substance misuse. Staff actually have learned a lot from hearing residents' experiences and deepened their understanding of how best to support those residents. Improving Wi-Fi was also one of our aims, still a challenge, I hasten to add, but it's something that we're continuing to work on. And we do recognise that measurement can be very difficult when you're trying to measure impact, but we did use the WinWebs tool, the assessment tool, and there was an increase in the score. But we also recognise in Providence House that unfortunately, because a lot of people are older and have a lot of frail issues, we do have a few bereavements, and each individual is celebrated, but it can have an impact on their well-being. Next slide, please. So these were a few quotes. This was from a staff member. I found playing games very useful in establishing good rapport with residents. Prior to the introduction of the initiative, it was quite hard to get hold of certain residents and keep a conversation going on for a while. But playing games opened up that room and led to have meaningful discussions. I was happy to see the effort being made with the barbecue. It was nice to see other residents there too, was from a resident. And then from a reset worker, it's been a great experience as the substance misuse workshops have been with clients and staff. I felt that this combination has worked really well as staff have learned from clients' experiences and given them valuable insight into addiction. It's been very easy to deliver as everyone got involved. Next slide.
Mary, I'm keen to give people an opportunity to ask questions. So do you want to pick a few kind of highlights? Yeah.
Yeah, just to say,
we'll share the slides so people
that's
can.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah. So co-production, of course, was hugely important. Consistency, and I think the Plan, Do, Study, Act, and I think the rest people. I think it's almost the last slide actually. So, but yes, please, if there is any questions, very happy to take them.
Sorry, Mary, I didn't want to cut you short, but I also, as I say, wanted to give people an opportunity to ask questions.
No, that's absolutely fine. No problem. That's okay. I'm very happy for the slides to be shared. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Aydan, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Thank you for the presentation. That really gave kind of helped me to picture what life is like for the staff and the clients. I was just wondering, how much the clients have a say in the kind of activities that are going on, and how much are they kind of helping to organize things, and also how popular are some of the things you do? Do you struggle to get people to show up, or do you, for example, the LGBTQ plus, did a lot of people come who weren't of that category, etc.? Just
I start off, but I might hand over to Sophie. So absolutely, in the beginning, when we were doing the pilot, it wasn't long after COVID, and people were petrified to come out of the rooms. And when we started to do the activities, what I was mentioning about being there, even if nobody showed up, was so important. And then when people saw that you were there and you were going to do a jigsaw, you do a jigsaw anyway, whether somebody joined up. And then people would come and join you, and they come and go. And you could see it increasing all of the time. And we then decided we'd do biscuits when they were coming. And then they said, well, can we have pizzas, or can we? And it was from the residents, and then everything just grew. And I just go to Sophie because the LGBTQ event was fantastic as well. So Sophie, I'll hand over to you for that one.
Yeah, so the barbecue that we had for our LGBTQ event, that was a big turnout. I do think that food definitely plays a big factor in how many people show up, but they always end up commenting on like how good it is and then coming to the next one. And what we notice is they tend to tell their other friends, the other residents, and then they'll bring along more people each time. And then in terms of them getting involved, so this morning, for example, we had breakfast club. Our residents cook the food themselves, and then we'll put it out for everyone to help themselves. Sometimes they'll teach each other basic things, maybe like a scrambled egg. And then when we have our monthly meetings with the residents, we ask their feedback on all activities. They came up at our last resident meeting. They said that they wanted to do a trip to a farm. So we made a trip to the local farm, to Mud Street Farm, with quite a few of them. So yeah, it's really resident led, but obviously some activities are more popular than others. For example, the farm trip wasn't appropriate for everyone due to mobility issues. So it's really flexible.
Thank you. And it just occurred to me, we probably have your presentation, your original presentation on the Padlet. So if people want to explore that. I'm going to move on to John, and then I think Alistair will have the last question. If we can be.
Okay, thank you very much. Really impressive approach. Very, it's good to see how you involve people. I particularly work around co-production in Tower Hamlets, so it's great to see. And it'd be really nice to kind of, if we could use you as an example of how you do co-production in Tower Hamlets. What I was particularly also interested in was the SHARP approach, the social housing and anti-racism pledges. I'm also involved in work around health and housing, so essentially trying to make sure we really do what's worth. Is the SHARP a national program, or is it something you produced yourselves? Because I'd like to find out more about it, because we would like to encourage people to kind of sign up to such pledges.
I'm really happy, John, to share, if we can share the addresses of things, or I can send it to Angela. So the SHARP actually came from the housing, oh God, I can't think of the name of one of the main housing organisations, and the National Housing Organisation. And they basically have the SHARP and the House Proud, which really does a lot of supportive work, and they have action plans, and we've signed up to those action plans. But of course, it's not the staff that need to sign up to them, the residents need to understand. And we had, I think we were shocked by the discussions. I think, again, Sophie could probably say more. They were so accepting and understanding. We didn't get what we thought might be perceived challenges as to why we were choosing or maybe concentrating on this, and conversations that came out of that were really beneficial to everybody. So we were very, very happy. And I think you had flags, didn't you? You had lots of flags from all over, and all of the support for the event. But it was an excellent turnout as well.
I've been terrible chairing today. It's just been such an interesting set of presentations. We are at 12:30 and we normally finish at 12:30. So if people are having to leave, then please do. I do want to give Alistair an opportunity to ask his question. If people are able to stay on, I suppose particularly our presenters, but I also understand if people have to leave. So last say, Alistair.
Just wondering your understanding within a trauma-informed approach, what that means for personal experience of staff, how that is discussed and shared, how you work as a group to be radically and genuinely trauma informed, the conversations you've had around that.
Yeah, I think I caught all of that. We were very fortunate actually to be working with psychologists. So Che and Sarah were very instrumental in supporting us on the project, and we had been quite lucky in that we had the relationship with them prior to that. So we actually have case presentations and we have reflective practice that support the team in being able to look at different types of trauma or to consider a different approach. For us, if we have to evict somebody, we've lost something along the way. That really is the worst case scenario, is to evict somebody. And a lot of it really where staff try to understand behavior. So people are supported, like to be accepted for who they are, and that we will try to support them to build maybe a new tool or a new response to a trigger. And so it's a lot of work in understanding triggers to emotions or when somebody might get upset, and really supporting our staff to be able to talk to them and maybe to support them to be able to look at it differently. That's hugely, but I think the biggest thing is the staff show they care. I think that despite whatever happens in Providence House, you walk in there and it feels like a home. It doesn't feel, it's their home. It's not a work environment. And sometimes you look at the pictures and you wouldn't know who was the staff and who was the residents. And to me, that's key. You know, that should be like the service I'd like to have in all of our schemes. But if ever you would like to visit, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Mary. I think it's such a rich presentation and a rich description. The point about evictions being a kind of something's gone wrong made me think of when we started thinking about psychologically informed environments over 10 years ago, and that was one of the objectives, one of the goals, and it felt like a high aspiration that we would never get anywhere near to. So I think to hear that actually that is where you're at, and that this is home for people is very rewarding, and but I think also tells the untold story of this takes time and commitment and kindness and compassion towards each other in staff groups, and the kind of the frame, the context that organizations need to provide to teams so that they can be trauma informed and kind of achieve the amazing results that you guys have done. So Shola, we're well over time, so if you've got a very quick question that can be answered in 30 seconds, then go for it. Otherwise, I am going to end the session today. You're on mute.
I really just wanted to congratulate Providence Row. I'm a social worker with adults with learning disabilities, and I'm certainly going to take your approach back to our staff meeting, and that our supported living placements in borough and the services that we use out of borough can actually adapt some of that for our service users. So I just really wanted to congratulate you on your community engagement with the church, the mosque, the GP surgery, and what you're doing. It sounds fantastic. If you have a vacancy, I might actually apply.
Well, what a fantastic note to end on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for our brilliant presentations and the amazing work that's going on. I know there's a lot of work going on in everyone's area, and if you've got something you want to share with us, then please get in touch with Angela and myself, and we'll schedule an opportunity for you to share the work that you're doing. I apologise for overrunning, but it felt like the right thing to do. And just to say, Angela normally puts the evaluation link in the chat, but I haven't seen that today, so maybe we'll forego it. She's doing it now. So do let us know how that session was, and I look forward